You're most welcome to this cytology video, and in this video today we are going to look at the structure of an animal cell. My name is Okelo Paul. A cell is the smallest and fundamental unit of life. It is a very small structure that you cannot look at with your naked eyes. You can only view it through a microscope. The first person to look at a cell or to discover a cell was Robert Hooke. That was in 1965 when he did that using his compound microscope. And later on, technology went on improving until the detailed version of the cells were got. Now, if you're to look at a cell, or once cells come together, cells that are performing a similar role or a similar function, once they come together, they are going to form a tissue. And once tissues of the same origin performing similar functions come together, they are going to form a system. They are going to form an organ. That is an organ. Once tissues come together, they form an organ. And once these organs that are performing a similar or an identical role come together, they are going to form a system. And in our body, we have so many systems that make up a human being. That is the circulatory system, the respiratory system, the digestive system, the excretory system. Those are plus the nervous system. Those are the systems that form up a human being. So today's case, in today's video, we are going to concentrate only on the structure of the cell. Now, our cell here, it is composed of three basic structures. The first structure is this outlining here, as you can see, and this one we shall call it our cell membrane, or you can also decide to call it a plasma membrane. The second structure is the inner structure, which is red in color, as you can see here, and that one we are going to call it our nucleus. Now, in between the cell membrane and then the nucleus, there is a space that is there, and this space is filled with a fluid, a gel-like structure, and that one we shall call it our cytoplasm. This structure here, as you can see, this one, this is our cytoplasm. Now, in the cytoplasm, there are inclusions and suspensions that are there. So many structures lie within the cytoplasm, and for that case, we shall group them as cytoplasmic organelles. Now, what is the exact use of a cell membrane or a plasma membrane? A plasma membrane is a bilayer that is composed of phospholipids. Now, the use of the phospholipids that are just in here, although the bilayer is not clearly indicated in this picture or in this diagram, but the major role of the plasma membrane is to allow passage of substances in and out of the cell. Outside this side, this space here, this is our extracellular matrix, and then inside this is our intracellular matrix. So the extracellular matrix contains so many substances that are in form of food, enzymes, and so on, ions, proteins, electrolytes. So the cell membrane allows the passage or diffusion of these substances in and outside the cell with the help of the phospholipid molecules. That the phospholipids act like the binders of these substances, and they are transported across the cell membrane into the intracellular matrix. So most of the drugs, if you're to go into pharmacology, most of the drugs that are prescribed, they always target the cell membrane. Once the cell membrane is disrupted, it is going to cause lysis of the entire cell. The cell is going to die. So the cell membrane controls movement of materials in and outside the cell, and it maintains the integrity of the cell. The next structure here is this nucleus of ours, which is shaded red. The nucleus is like the engine of the cell. it contains, or it carries all the genetic materials that that code for information that is contained in the cell. And for this case, the genetic material is the DNA and then the RNA. Now, inside the nucleus, there is a small structure which is there, that is, we shall call it the nucleolus. The nucleolus, it is a site of ribosome synthesis, and it is involved in controlling cellular activities and cellular proteins or cellular reproduction. So this nucleus here of ours, it is that is responsible for the formation of these other structures that are suspended in the cytoplasmic membrane, and we are going to call it the ribosome, as you see it here. So it is from the nucleolus that is where our ribosome is going to be produced, or our ribosomes are going to be formed. So what is the exact use of the ribosomes? The ribosomes, their major function is to produce amino acids, or to produce proteins that contain the genetic information that is required by the cell. Now, let's take for instance, if the cell wants to commit apoptosis. Let me just put here apoptosis. Apoptosis is natural cell death. Take for instance, a red blood cell has 21 days of life. Beyond that, it dies on its own. So it is the nucleolus, or the whole information is going to come from the nucleus, instructing the ribosomes to produce proteins that code, or that have the information, genetic information, responsible to do apoptosis. So once that information is got from the ribosomes, it is going to be transported, and then it will be coded until the cell dies. Our next structure there, our next structure is the nuclear membrane. The nuclear membrane is just this structure here, which is outside. It is a covering of the nucleus. The nuclear membrane protects the nucleus by forming a boundary between the nucleus and other organelles. It protects the nucleus because it acts like a barrier between the cytoplasm and then the internal organelles of the nucleus. It is the same thing with it plays a similar role like the plasma membrane that controls the movement of items in the extracellular matrix and then intracellular. But now for this case, it is controlling the ones of the intracellular and then the nucleus. Our next structure there are the chromosomes. The chromosomes play a crucial role in the determination of the sex of an individual. So each human being contains 23 pairs of chromosomes. We shall look at the details of that later on in the next video. The next organelle there is the endoplasmic reticulum. As you can see here, the endoplasmic reticulum, they are of two types. We have the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and then we have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Now, if the endoplasmic reticulum is so dense, or it is surrounded by ribosomes, it becomes rough. So it has that roughness is brought about by the high concentration of ribosomes around it. So the major function of the endoplasmic reticulum, be it rough or smooth endoplasmic reticulum, it is involved in the transportation of substances throughout the cell. So it plays a primary role in the metabolism of carbohydrates and synthesis of lipids, steroids, proteins, and so on. So that is the major role of the endoplasmic reticulum. And then down here we have our Golgi apparatus, or you can call it the Golgi body. The Golgi bodies are called the cell's post office, as it is involved in the transportation of materials within the cells. So the major role of the Golgi apparatus, it is like a messenger. So it transports are the information or the materials that are contained in the cell. We have looked at the ribosome. I will not go back into that. And then finally, we shall look at the mitochondria and then the lysosomes. The mitochondria is also commonly known as the powerhouse. This is the powerhouse of the cell. So it is called so because it produces ATP, the cell's energy currency. So that is where energy is manufactured from. This is from our mitochondria for all the processes of the cell to take place. So that's why it is called the powerhouse of the cell. And then finally, we shall look at the lysosomes. The lysosomes protect the cell by engulfing the foreign bodies entering the cell and helps in the renewal. Therefore, it is called the cell's suicide bags. The lysosomes contain enzymes in them, the lytic enzymes, that are responsible for the lysis of any kind of intruder that comes into the cells. And it may not be any intruder, it can also lyse the cell itself of which it is contained, depending on the information that is there on the ribosomes. The cell can instruct the ribosomes to synthesize or to transport or to produce the proteins that are responsible for committing apoptosis. So once that information is received by the lysosome, it is going to trigger or it is going to release up the lytic enzymes that are going to burst. They are going to disrupt the cell membrane, and then the cell is going to die naturally. So that is the basic structure of our cell. And next time we are going to look at these things in details. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video.